Uh, yeah, and I want to thank Shamit and Youssef for coming to talk about ourtown.io. I'm really excited to hear all kinds of stories about like what you're doing and about the SBIR process, and what you need, because I understand there's some kinds of cooperation, collaboration kinds of opportunities as well. So maybe I could just turn it over to you and let you guys go.
Sure. Youssef, do you want to share screen?
Yes, I'm gonna go ahead and start sharing my screen.
And maybe in the discussion we can talk about the origins of the origins of the origins of this. But yeah, so what is Our Town Hall? It's a project by Calm Waters Group. Maybe we can just go to the next slide. So what we're building is a stakeholder management platform connecting governments to underserved communities for sustained long-term relationships between the government and communities, including discovery of these communities, their engagement with the platform and with government, and their activation by connecting them to funding and resources, whether private or public. And the goal is to implement systemic equity, both locally and globally. We seek to be the ESRI of equitable community engagement, and make it modular and action-based, and connect communities and their needs to resources. We are agnostic to the societal challenge. It could include climate change, food systems, biodiversity, infrastructure development, health, pollution, etc. The goal is to surface needs of communities, especially that are most impacted, which tend to be historically vulnerable communities, to resources for all stages of the planning cycle, all the way from longer term planning to eventually disaster management as well. I think we can go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, the way we've broken this up in our grant process to SBIR program, which is the Small Business Innovation Research Program run out by the federal government and its agencies. We applied to the National Science Foundation, and that's where we got funded. So we broke our project down into 3 phases: stakeholder discovery, stakeholder engagement, and stakeholder activation. For phase 1, we're focusing on stakeholder discovery. We're using artificial intelligence and machine learning to automatically find the community-based organizations in a given area, so that that database can pre-populate information for a local government seeking to implement a location-based project. And then for phase 2, which will be applying early next year, we will focus on engagement, how to actually win trust of some of these communities and community organizations, how to get them to actually engage. And then finally, how to connect them to useful resources, not just funding, but also technical resources. So a lot of governments and consultants offer services to train communities, right, to do some of the work themselves to the extent they can, ranging from climate resilience to food security, etc. On the left, we show why the current system is broken, and our team lead, Marcus Griswold, has many years of experience in this. He has been working he worked in local governments and regional governments for a long time. And his role was actually to connect to underserved communities. And what he saw was a lot of one-off engagements, right? So when a government puts out a call for comments, it's in some vacuum somewhere, it's on a website, and maybe some of the regular community members see it, maybe they engage with it, but there's really no statistically representative outreach to the actual communities and their demographics on ground. That's not even enabled today. So, and when the project gets done, all that's sort of thrown out, and there's no institutional memory. 10 years ago, there was a planning project, and a certain community gave a certain feedback that this would impact them negatively or positively. So then 10 years later, who's actually looking at what happened? That's really hard to do, longitudinal analysis. And then there's just technical, the way they do it is they have an engagement manager that has all the information in their head, at most in a sheet, Excel sheet. They work on the project for like a year or so, and then they're gone, and the whole relationship breaks again, and then communities are struggling to figure out who should they talk to about that project. So it's a lot of personal networks that are used today. So we want to try to use technology to build a place where communities can go back to, and even if a person may have changed, that role maybe exists and some other person has taken the role, and they can pretty much kind of text them in real time if needed, and see new grant opportunities popping up, and form groups to be able to find other CBOs to partner with, and look for resources. So we want to make it like an Esri / any of your other favorite platforms to do this in a way that a modern establishment should be able to do. With that, I'll hand it over to Yusuf, unless there are questions at this point. Okay.
And I see that there's one, that this might be a question. Okay, no, that I don't think that's. So with that, thank you very much, Sumit. And I can jump in here, because as Sumit mentioned, the SBIR program, NSF, National Science Foundation Small Business grant, is a technical grant. However, in approaching this work in this phase 1, which is about seeing whether using machine learning and AI, things that Sumit can speak to much better than me, we can do that work of finding CBOs. What we wanted to tackle from the beginning was this aspect of trust building and relationship building, because no matter how powerful this technology would end up being at the end of phase 1, if we do not have the buy-in of the communities, who are at the end of the day really sort of our partners, because that's their information. We are trying to represent them in a way and help them. So we try our best to make sure that in this phase 1, we are also able to marry technology with the involvement of the community. And that brings me to the next slide. Oops, too far. So Community Technology Fellows Program. So we're excited to share with you that we are launching this fellowship. And the idea behind the fellowship is that a lot of times when companies want to know about the opinions of the community, they might jump in, have an interview with multiple people in different communities, and that's it. Whereas with the fellowship, our goal is to actually bring in a group of hopefully 30, fingers crossed. Last I checked, we have 15 people signed up. Bring them in, and over about a month and a half, allow them to get a better understanding of what we are doing, so that they can provide us with feedback. And I don't need to go too deep into this, because I'm sure all of you know it better than me, that a lot of the technology that is being built, especially technology that is supposed to serve NGOs and communities, is built in silos, not necessarily in partnership with these communities. So they end up being consumers of these technologies. And the problem there is that, again, as you all know, a lot of technology, this sort of technology, AI technology, is about what you're feeding the system. That's where we have control, because how the machine understands the issue, it's something that, you know, even people with lots of knowledge are still trying to figure out. But where we have control is how we are feeding AI information and how we are creating a business model around it. And with that idea, this fellowship has 3 main workshops. One focuses on conversations about the community's perspective on engagement, and specifically what we have been calling sustained engagement, so that it's not a one-off thing, but building a relationship over time. Because a lot of times, you know, the sort of projects that we are talking about take decades to finish. And so that's the first workshop. The second workshop is really where we are trying to help demystify AI, at least the part that anybody can really grasp, which is how we feed AI data, and have them actually go at it, try it out. And our hope is that it will get them excited, and it will let them see the sort of biases that might go into this process and why it is so important for them to be involved in this process of how we are feeding our technology data. And the last workshop focuses on business model. If we are getting their information, what are the existing business models to help us, you know, maybe we have heard of co-ops, different types of co-ops, and there could be other types of business models that could involve these communities and community representatives as partners. And the idea of the workshop is that in between, there would be a total of 10 hours, more or less, I would say less probably, of engagement, maybe over Slack, maybe getting to see each other in real, etc. And once we are through this, now to the question of SBIR process. So the grant is for technology, but there is a part of this grant which is called Bootcamp, Customer Discovery Bootcamp, and that's what I'm calling out here with interviews, where you're supposed to do 30 interviews in about a month. And if you are part of the SBIR phase 1, then you also get a chance to do 100 interviews through another program called iCore to build your business model, to get you ready for phase 2. And we think this last workshop could, and the conversations we will have, could really set us up for that last part. And this slide is really going over everything I was saying. And the last part is that our hope is that, you know, with this fellowship, we are doing our best not to be extractive and try to really bring these fellows along. And that brings me to, actually, let me stop here before I go on with asks. Any questions so far, any confusion, any part of this presentation so far that you might want to hear more about, or you might want to even forget about?
So you guys are actively recruiting people to join this fellowship?
Yes. Thank you for that excellent question. And I can actually show you, I have the link here. So it's ourtownhall.io, community tech fellows. But if you just make it to ourtownhall.io, it's this big, bold link.
Cool.
And over there, we have a video, which was the webinar we had, a Q&A session, and it starts on September 19, so the deadline to apply is 18.
That's soon.
Yes, it's starting very soon. And so with that, maybe if I could go back here, Sumit, anything you want to say right now, or is it okay if I?
Yeah. So
No.
this is our ask for the, maybe that's what we're going to talk about next, is this is kind of our ask for the community, and we'll also post it in Slack, Dave. So we're looking for communities-based organizations, community leaders that would be interested in this, at least a flavor of machine learning AI, what it's about, and generally, how can we be less extractive about AI? That's kind of the philosophical motivation for some of this, because we are literally using AI to find information on CBOs automatically. We're educating them. Look, this is how anybody can do this already, and this is how it works. So do you want to maybe co-own this with us? Do you want to control the information and help us, maybe remove biases, or at least have your opinion built into it, as opposed to us doing sort of a mechanical job, just scraping things and tagging things the way we see fit. So, that's kind of the philosophical hope, is that maybe if the entities being sold as a product, which is all of us by big tech, if we can maybe, first of all, realize that maybe there's a way we can shape some of that data going into the AI, and then maybe do it better. Maybe, not be, as our grant director says, that some of the AI out there today, it's like eating from the garbage bin. So we don't want to eat from the garbage bin. We want to have actual nutrition coming in from our AI. Okay.
There's a great video, but I'm just trying to see if I can remember how to figure out how to find it, that I watched recently, which was around AI, collective ownership structures for AI models. Because when you've got a bunch of people contributing into the creation of a thing that is then going to generate revenue, figuring out what the equitable business model is around that, is quite interesting.
That'd be great if you can find it.
Yeah, and that would be, I think, one ask here is if you can think of anybody, and just to specify, there is no requirement, zero requirement for having any tech background or being interested in any particular societal issue. In our fellows right now, we have a diverse group of people. And so just to clarify that piece, but also that business model, like if you have come across, talks, ideas, if you know of businesses who are doing or trying to do this type of, implement this type of business model, if you could, think of us, that would be amazing. And maybe it's worth mentioning that we did get a chance to talk to Social Roots as well, that also had its start in GRC. and they are using a co-op model as well. So we're at this point, we're trying to learn.
Yeah,
Cool.
Christina Bowen from Social Roots. She was, I met her here a while back.
How about a data union?
Oh, go ahead, Scott.
How about a data union? There's an awful lot of talk about generating common pools of data and stewarding those as a shared asset. I've really been vibing on the data union framing around this. And I'm not going to launch into my whole story, but I've been thinking about this concept for a very long time. I'm a cosmo-localist, you could say. And I'm really interested in, how we could create a digital democracy that doesn't suck by, just getting better at asking people what they need and what they want and organizing that data in more effective ways. And so the idea of engaging with, a target, typically geographically based population around kind of those types of efforts, and then giving contemplation to this data as a commons, something I'm into. I guess the only other thing that I would like to share is that I'm also tracking a group called Refi DAO. I don't know how much into the Web3 space you guys have been or are, but they're still a relatively young organization. They're out there, figuring it out and trying to put all the pieces together, often way more fast than is viable, really. But that's just, how it goes these days. But they have been bringing together a network of what they're calling the local nodes. And I don't know exactly how many they're up to, but I do know that this is a fairly recent list of self-identified place-based regenerator types who may be candidates for this fellowship. There's another couple of networks like this that I think we could recruit from / advertise to. I can put it in the relevant Telegram groups and whatnot. But it's 3 days away, so it's a bit of a, hey, you want to do this? Like 600. I mean, $600 ain't bad. I do have to point out that you're also asking people to work for that with doing all these interviews, right? That's going to be a major time suck. So that ain't free money. But anyway.
And just to, since you brought up interviews, it is true that there is work. It's the 3 workshops and, sometime in between to, maybe do some homework. But the interviews that I mentioned, just to clarify, the 100 interviews, that's a separate thing. That's that's part of the SBIR, and it's it's our team. It's a team of like, you cannot be more than 5 to get into it. But we're hoping, we're hoping that the conversations that we have at, in the boot camp, those 7 weeks, 8 weeks, they will clear up our minds to help us go into these 100 interviews, the 5 of us, with better questions. So that's just to clarify.
Cool.
I dropped the link in for the video, so it might be worth taking a look at that later. But so is the goal to have, there's this human process aspect, but the grant, you were saying, does require one outcome of the grant is delivery of technology, of an initial piece of technology of some.
Yes. The way, so again, more on how SBIRs work, at least for NSF, the SBIR phase 1 is very technical. So it needs to demonstrate that there was some hard problem that you had to solve, and then show how you solved it with your unique team and its strengths. And then once you've cleared that sort of proof of concept, then you apply for phase 2 for commercialization. So then you say, okay, we figured out how to solve this, and now we're going to go larger scale at it, and we're going to maybe build like a usable prototype out of it. So that's how NSF's SBIRs work.
And I would add that, being through it, at least so far, they do push you to look into the commercialization, the human aspect, like what problem are you solving a lot? Because I think their expectation is that a lot of the people who apply are coming from hard sciences, maybe from universities where they have spent a lot of time coming up with this amazing technology, but never spend a minute thinking about how it actually fits people's world. So there's a lot of that with the boot camp and with the possibility of doing I-Core. There's a push for that as well.
So
And David,
the hard problem you're solving on the technical side, right? The hard problem you're solving is crawling the web, some subset of the web, identifying the relevant organizations within some kind of geographic boundary. Oh, and sorry, Felicia, I should have raised my hand too.
Yeah. So and the hard problem is, for example, extracting attributes from the websites. Websites are unstructured data, and we have to teach the AI to grab structure out of it. And some of those attributes are easier, like named entity recognition is one way people look for, name of organization, address, leader of organization. The interesting ones for us from a competitive point of view, and from what we've heard from governments, are the more long tail, like what is the geographic service area of an organization, to get it as precise as you can. You look at a nonprofit, it claims to serve the entire Northern California area, and you look at it, there's 2 people. Okay, how are they going to really cover that, right? What have they covered in the past? That's a more realistic assessment of what they can actually serve. So the government needs to kind of make a judgment, they're actually really in Oakland, right? And then other tags that are of interest are things like assets. So the government is interested in what are the soft assets a CBO can bring to the table. Even if they're small, maybe they don't have a big enough revenue stream, but they have this very big network of partners, of agitators, of trucks that they can use on call to distribute food. So the soft assets, right? And then there's other tags like what is the exact population served. So those are the more interesting ones for customers like government to figure out what relationships they want with what, or who to even reach out to, and this degree of seriousness. And those are long tail, and we're discovering in our process that they're actually hard to tag. They're even hard to define sometimes. So that becomes like our hard problem then, the whole process of trying to do that semi-automatically.
and I'm gonna Felicia, please.
Yeah, thanks. So I just wanted to repeat back what I think I'm understanding to see if I'm understanding your project. So first of all, are you guys a for-profit or a nonprofit or something else?
Currently, we're for-profit, but we'll be exploring other models as we go. We just needed to have an entity for phase 2. So
Right.
currently, it's a C Corp, benefit C Corp in name.
Cool. And so at the moment you're a for-profit and you're working on an idea where you would create or are creating essentially like a database of community-based organizations to help government entities, I'm assuming mostly local government, to understand efforts or activities in their area using AI.
Yeah, so it's to help, well, starting with local governments, eventually federal government. The sales cycles are different. For federal, they're longer and more formal. Local governments are more nimble and they're more innovative. So again, Marcus has been in there and knows like sustainability offices tend to be more nimble. So it is to help them quickly discover what are the kinds of community leaders even, or, formal community organizations that are nonprofits registered, or informal parent-teacher association, school groups, things like that, that may be of interest that they haven't typically reached because it is so manual, because it is desktop research that an intern does over the summer for that project and then leaves, and then the research maybe is in some, Google sheet sitting somewhere. So
Left forced.
so that's the first step, is to help them discover relevant and interesting organizations that they may want to reach out to beyond whatever maybe even their sector is. So we're actually partnered with the BCDC, that's the Bay Area Coastal Development Commission. They serve the 9-county Bay Area, and basically they help kind of give permits to developers and other entities that may want to do something to the shoreline. And it has some rigid definition of a certain number of feet that is considered shoreline from the water level. So they're interested in sea level rise, right? So they have their projections of vulnerability of populations across the 9 counties in the Bay Area. And they've tried to reach out to organizations through their usual means. They already have a lot of CBOs they work with, obviously, as an agency that's been around for several years. So what they were intrigued by was that our automatic search found organizations they haven't even seen before, because they're not in their sort of, either in their human network or in their scope of coastal adaptation. Because coastal adaptation, then, the way Marcus describes to us is technically, once the sea level rises, it starts to mess with your water supplies, with your sewage systems. So it starts to impact, a lot more communities and people than you would originally think. It's not just that narrow strip of shoreline. So we're helping them by being sort of more comprehensive and granular, and finding new people to talk to, kind of.
And if I could jump in to address the question, I think the way you put it, Felicia, is that, a database, say, to help government find out who are the right people to reach out to on a given project. And I would say that would describe 2 things. That would describe what we think might be our phase 1, our first, as they like to call it, beachhead market. But and to be fair, in the interviews we did, people did actually bring up Salesforce, that in their organization, they have been using Salesforce. But I think what is the vision, what is the hope, and why we are trying to bring the community and get the community involved is that we are hoping that it's not going to be just a database, a one-way database where somebody sits behind a desk, finds a list, sends out this automatic email that will overburden a whole lot of organizations that are already too busy and strapped for resources. So I think the next step, which would be the engagement, sustained engagement, building trust piece, is how can we bring together this database, and then over that database, take care of how you maintain a project. How do you educate people in proper ways of reaching out? Because what we heard, even in the interviews with the government, was that they would much rather have a warm connection, a warm introduction to a community rather than, doing a cold call. And so they would like to know who's connected, and they would like to know if there are already communities working with the government that they can jump in and connect with. Is there a question?
IP joint.
Rick, was there a question or comment? Sorry.
I think there was some background noise, but I just wanted to follow up my question. if I understand, which I'm better understanding, thank you, you're filling in there of your project. I'm just wondering how much you guys are aware of this basic idea of a database of who is doing what. It goes back, and it's been tried and not worked out really well in most instances that I've seen. Like, I have a whole little speech around this from some project I personally have worked on because I keep seeing the need for it. And you know, I get involved in people's initiatives around this, and then it just doesn't work. And you know, there's a bunch of examples of like the stream of time is littered with attempts to create a database of who is doing what that haven't worked. So I like the idea of the AI piece because I feel like it helps, you know, reduce the like grunt work of, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like Greg Bloom and Open Referral and the work that they've done over this over years and years and years. And see, the thing is, it's like there's these at least 3 different sort of targets. One is in Greg Bloom and Open Referral, they were trying to help service providers to know who to send their clients to. Like if they're a food pantry and they want to send their client to somewhere where they can get support for paying their electricity bill or whatever it is, it's hard for them to have a good, solid, reliable, up-to-date database of where to send their food pantry clients for some other service, because it's just really administratively intensive to keep up those databases. And so that's what they've dealt with, is that, you know, you're a service provider, you want to refer your clients to other quality, current information service providers. And then there's the like person on the street that wants to know when they can go to the food pantry, what the hours are, you know, just like those simple things. And then there's the sort of community organizers, government entities, and others who are kind of trying to understand what's going on, who's doing what, how's it going, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, they're more to the kind of community organizing government entity sort of groups. And all of those pieces, you know, often like somebody put 211 in the thing, there's, you know, from, I think that's United Way. There's just like, there's so many different attempts to do this over time. Some of them have had some success. Some have been around for a number of years, but most of the efforts I've seen have just not worked. And I did one little sketch version, which wasn't meant to be an actual tool. It was meant to be a picture of a surface level picture of what could be possible with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, sdgmarin.org, where I got a volunteer who wrote a little bit of code to make a spreadsheet that plugged into the website. And it was just like, look, one version of a taxonomy. So there's just like, there's this long littered history of all these different versions of essentially, I think, what is the same or a similar kernel idea of what you guys are dealing with. And so again, I hope the AI piece would make it different. I feel like the SDGs bring in a different factor because they're time-based. They're goal-oriented. So there's this other dimension of like why you would bother to keep your organization's information up to date. And then also I had a specific question, which was, I have a friend who's in Marin City, which is a mixed race county in an otherwise fairly white county of Marin County, works with low-income people. She would definitely not identify as having any identification with or interest in really technology, but she's a volunteer at a lot of different local organizations. And I just don't know if given your fellowship parameters, if it makes sense to refer her. I mean, I can certainly just send her the link and she'll check it out and decide for herself if she's interested, but I don't know if you guys are looking for people who are more, you know, kind of already have a certain facility with technology and blah, 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 or if like totally off the, you know, being the pavement volunteer types who are enmeshed in their communities, if those are more the people, or if you're looking for kind of all of the above.
I would say, and I will let Sumit also share her thoughts on this. My sense is people who are all of the above, but also hoping a lot of people who are enmeshed with the community. And in fact, those might be what they bring to the table is their perspective on technology. Because even if you don't use technology or not, you know, you're not a consumer of technology all the time, but we all have that perspective. And I think for our platform, to that question of how to get over that, I think valley of death would not be the right word here, but how to get over that. One thing we think is a critical piece for what we want to do, the problem we want to solve with this database, is trust. If we can get that trust build that trust and relationship, we think that we might have a chance at not being one of the, and of course there is the AI piece of it, but I think there is also a lot to be said about it, creating that sort, being a platform that is trusted so that people do gravitate toward this place and do feel like there is value to have their information properly represented in the space. And one last thing I wanted to mention is that we have been talking a lot about the government, because obviously our first step is, government, because they have all the resources to pay. But on the other side, for a lot of the CBOs, it's the same dynamic, like both government and CBOs, they run on grants. And so that need to know who's doing what, it's not just government that needs it, it's the CBOs as well. And now to go back to your, to the person that I would say if you could share our information, it would be wonderful. And if she's interested to join, we would be happy to have her.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. To echo Yusuf's point, please distribute to anybody you think that comes from a community background, large or small, activists or big NGOs even maybe, and community leaders, because we really want to hear from them and have them join us in some fashion, hopefully. And to answer your question, Felicia, actually, I'd love to learn about the failures. So I attended another one of our NSF workshops. So the nice thing with this grant is they provide a lot of training. So yesterday they had some training for the next phase of the application. And one of the they tend to be people with startup backgrounds who've done like a lot of successful and unsuccessful startups. So one practice that person uses is failure mode analysis. How could we fail? Why would we fail? So what you're telling me now is, oh, that'd be great data points on, trying to understand what they tried and why it failed, so that when we're planning for ourselves, we don't make the same mistakes.
I'm glad you're saying that, because I was gonna suggest, if you haven't already done those interviews, I mean, one of the biggest efforts that is just kind of hanging around in the space and the baggage of the sustainability movement is Wiser Earth and Paul Hawken and their whole, it was like this big idea. He was gonna take all of his suitcases of business cards and stick them in a database, and they worked on it for like 2 years, and somehow it just didn't work. And I don't know why, but I was, if you interview them, maybe you can find out. And there's a ton of other ones. I mean, I know of like 5 others at least. There's a current one that the Buckminster Fuller Institute has worked on a little tiny bit over years with the Spaceship Earth. Oh gosh, I should know the name of this effort because I worked on it too a little bit. But anyway, there's a bunch of them, and they've all, I don't know if they've all failed for the same reason or different reasons, or Bioneers had one at one point that they were co-partners with. There's just been so many, and yeah, and plus I would really love to see this be really not just government centric, because government I am a sustainability or a systems thinker person, and Danella Meadows, her thing about the purpose of the system and the purpose of government, particularly local government, as far as I've gathered, is to meet government regulations. And so they're going to tell you, oh, we want to provide health for people, we want to provide access to food, we want to provide better housing. They say all the right things, but they're actually, their hands are tied. They can't, because of their own regulations. And so like, I feel like this is it sounds like a cool tool, but I don't know that government is actually going to be able to implement it. So I would now, a lot of these other community organizations, they theoretically run on grants, but actually they run on like sweat and blood and tears. A lot of the most important ones have zero money, like zero. And they don't have a website. They don't even have a Facebook page, a lot of the most important ones. So I hope we can somehow find them.
Yeah. No, we'd love to talk to the ones that are actually making change, right? What we care about is those that are actually making change and know how to make change. So actually they'll help us how to make change in this whole technology monetization services cycle, right?
Cooperating
It is
Manual for
int-
Spaceship Earth, that's what it's called.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like one of the things that's coming out of the conversation, I kind of agree, is that there are multiple applications for the tools you guys are developing, right? And it's a tough nut, you know, that I think. And so if you haven't talked to Greg and Open Referral, I definitely would, because a ton of the problem behind their database has been the kinds of problems you guys were describing, as far as how do I identify what kinds of organization, you know, his kinds of question would be, is somebody got I've got a homeless person who needs a bed, which community organization has a bed available to now, right? And so he's having to deal, I think, with a lot of the same situation, and a lot of the community organizations just don't have a lot of tech capacity. So, you know, it's not like this information is magically available. So anyway, he's been through it for like 10, 15 years now. So he has a lot of insights on it.
And that's Open Referral?
That's Open Referral, and his name's
Yeah,
Greg
Greg
Bloom.
Bloom.
And it sounds like, Scott, you know him. I haven't talked to Greg in years, but
Yeah, same. But he came and stayed with me in Ithaca once upon a time. Rented him my car, random.
yeah. Yeah, and I think he would be excited.
I
I think he would be excited about what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, I wanted to hop in and kind of, I'm not sure if this is exactly outside scope, but you know, like I said, I've also had my head in a similar space for a long time. And my approach is to this, I mean, the way that I've kind of seen this is basically like trying to digitize collective impact, right? Which is, we want to have a multi-stakeholder coalition, and we start aligning, right, around which of the issues in our place are the highest priority, and start surfacing more of the impact data that we're generating, right, around those things, so that we can collectively start to move the needle, right? I mean, it's similar concept. But when I saw, you know, first and foremost, your title, right? I mean, the name of this venture, Our Town Hall. I think that sets that gives me an idea, right, of what this will look like, and I'm expecting something like a virtual kind of town hall environment or experience, whereby I, as a citizen, right, can express myself and have, you know, those feelings recorded in some way, right, that is either directly informing decision making, you know, on the part of my elected officials, or is otherwise being applied, right, to the common benefit. And this is, you know, to your point, Felicia, and others from earlier, Ron, not letting the government be the only core client here. You know, the community itself should be the core client here. And I'm a person, right, with a background in community currencies and digital marketplaces, right, where those currencies can live and complement traditional purchasing power, so that, you know, the local economy can trade more goods and services than it would otherwise. And it helps, you know, introduce some kind of economic safety nets against financial crises, et cetera. But I became really interested in, you know, kind of DAOs, or, you know, common pool financial resources, as they are named in any number of ways. And I became really interested in, you know, like I said, digital democratic systems, you know, of the variety that we see coming out of like Barcelona and Taiwan. They have some, you know, made a lot of good progress on this kind of thing. But what would it look like if, you know, in addition to, or in perhaps direct juxtaposition with, the municipal budget, right, we have the people's budget, right, like a participatory budgeting program, right, whereby we're systematically surveying the community and, you know, building up this database of, you know, basically political priorities, right, and putting a focus on, you know, projects and policies more than representatives, and, you know, providing the people with an avenue to fund, you know, the solutions that they want to see more directly. And I think there's some interesting insights that we would get, you know, when you know, perhaps if we just kind of had a system that allowed systems to allocate, or allowed citizens to allocate the city budget, right, according to their values, and then just draw the contrast with the way that the city budget is actually going, right? Take LA, for example, a place where this would probably get some appreciation. Anyway, just a few other thoughts and just kind of wondering if, our town hall, might be paired with, some commons oriented financial technology such that, this became a political economy unto itself.
I think that is just a powerful idea, and we'd love to talk to you for like hours after this if you have time. And Felicia, oh, she just left. I was going to suggest she actually sign up. I was going to suggest she just sign up as a fellow for as a trial of our thing, and give us feedback. So I'll do that over email. But yeah, no, Scott, we would love to chat with you at length because
great. I got models and stuff.
Excellent. Oh, perfect. Perfect. I will email you right after if you put your email somewhere. Yeah. And anybody else, we're open. We're at an early stage. We need new ideas, and we need to change the world. And the bottom 90%, right? The top is the rich here, and the bottom 90% are down here. We want to flip it. How can we flip the power?
That's really, frankly, one of the primary design requirements for any sort of transformative system. And I almost never hear people make it explicit, right? That one of the biggest parts of the meta crisis is just wealth and income inequality, right? Either your system is contributing to the flow of that concentration of wealth, or you're reversing it. And if you're not reversing it, I don't want to talk to you.
Yep.
Right.
Oh, so yeah, let me just, because I wanted to add in that I actually think that the focus on government is not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing because it gives you a customer. I think one of the problems with like a white earth and stuff is
somebody has to pay. Somebody has to pay.
Well, somebody has to use it, right? I mean, I feel like one of the problems with a lot of our do-goody stuff is that we don't productize well, and essentially means we don't know who's supposed to use it for what, and that's hard, it turns out. And so I think having the constraint of somebody needs to use this for something useful is a really valuable design thing. So I don't know. I'm not against government. And I would say in California, right, you're also running into a situation with healthcare where they're going to be doing the CalAIM stuff. And so there'll be insurance companies are going to be able to fund like housing or food, right? And insurance companies don't know who has food services or housing services, right? So it will be exactly the same problem, I think, as the 2-on-1, but insurance companies might be your customer, right? Because they're going to need to, and then in California, the insurance companies are based at a county level. So every county in California is going to need a service like yours to help them identify additional needs that'll be paid through Medicaid. So anyway, I think it's just another use case.
Is this some new regulation you're talking about, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, California has just gotten a new Medicaid program implemented called CalAIM, which allows the insurance companies, the Medicaid insurers, to pay for services that are not necessarily health services, right? They're human social services. So it's just starting to roll out, and nobody knows how to do it. And one of the big problems will be the service provision question.
Cool.
So anyway, but at the spectrum, I think you've got a really core issue you're dealing with. If you can solve it for one group, you'll actually have a lot of insights into a whole bunch of other groups. And then the other thing I was just going to toss in was, as far as recruiting people like fellows, I would talk to Bobby Fishkin. The stuff he's been doing for recruiting at Crowd Doing is just fascinating, including really successfully using LinkedIn employment ads.
Interesting. So we didn't think of that. LinkedIn.
Yeah. No,
LinkedIn's our friend.
This is why Bobby is such a special guy. But one is, I mean, his cohort might be of interest, right? Just advertising to his cohort, but to his tools for recruiting people might be useful too.
And this is let me try. I looked at their website. I'm not sure I got his name from the website correctly.
Bobby Fishkin. He's
you're talking about our friend Bobby. I know Bobby.
Yeah. Just ask. Bobby's been doing these cool things for recruiting volunteers for Crowd Doing, so it might apply. I mean, one is like the people he's recruiting are probably the right kind of people for you, often, but also his approach is fine.
Oh, Bobby's people. Okay, you're not talking about open referral right now, right?
Open referral is the Greg Bloom thing.
Yeah, different. Got it. Oh yeah,
different thing.
Yeah, got it.
If I could just chime in very quickly to Scott's comment about the issue of inequity is something that coming from healthcare, having lived in it, and David, I'm very familiar with the things you're talking about. There are other countries which have successfully integrated social care into healthcare. Finland is probably the best example in the world for that. But without that integration, you're never going to touch the social determinants of health. And healthcare is diluted. They think they can do something about health inequities. I could talk at length about that, but I have to go back to work. And I just thought I'd pop in because you said the one word that got my attention. But I'll share you a blog post that goes into a little bit more detail about the follies of neoliberalism. And while it'd be nice to think we could invert the triangle, I think the best we can do is flatten it as far as possible. So
I think it can be inverted.
Sorry?
I think it can be inverted.
Well, of course it can be inverted, but anything can be inverted. The question is, what are the prospects of doing it, and what are the methodologies?
Well, it's a question with renewables, you can do a lot of stuff locally now. If you're doing solar to drive your economy, that can be done at a local level. So instead of buying your oil from Saudis, you can just do local solar energy to drive your economy. And that really gives you the capability of driving it bottom up.
Bottom up, I'm all in favor. I thought you talked about inverting the power structures.
Well, it does, because like all your power generation is done at the local level in your country, not
I think
done by the national military.
Yeah, well, I think we have to clarify what we mean by inverted. I'm thinking about all the billionaires thinking, are they going to be living on the street? No, they're not. But anyway, I'll let you get on with your conversation. I'll catch up with the replay. Thank you, though. I've got to go back to work.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we hit the hour here. I don't know if Kevin, if you have any other thoughts or anything, but we can stay longer if you guys want to. But I really appreciate the time, and I appreciate the work. It's exciting to see. It's exciting. Hey, have you actually interacted with Rajesh much at NSF?
Yeah. He's our grant director, and he's been pretty supportive. So we're hoping that we stay on his good side. No, he's very helpful in and the most important thing is he genuinely cares about this stuff. He genuinely cares about inequity. It is reflected in who he is giving the grants to. He probably has the most diverse group and the most actually underrepresented community representation of PIs, I think, in his cohort. When you look around, and he really genuinely cares about this, and the way he talks to us, and social roots as well, right? So Christina Bowen and the team, they love him as well, and somebody in authority has to generally care about these things. Somebody if government and NSF is not going to care about it, then corporate for sure doesn't care about equity in a genuine way, right? So we're just happy that he philosophically seems to be aligned on the right track.
Yeah, no, I think he's a wonderful guy. So that's fantastic. Cool.
Okay.
Well, thanks so much. Can you please report back once in a while? We'd love to hear any progress made. If there's anything I can do, certainly to help you recruit or whatever, let us know. But post it to the Slack and we get it into the newsletter for sure.
Okay, great. And we'll follow up with at least Scott, and if anybody else wants to follow up, then we're also happy to do that. Okay, great. Thanks so much, Dave.
Right, good.
Nice to meet everybody. Yeah, bye.